Hello, Train the Trainer friends. Can you believe it? We have Tina, Molly, and Patty. We're so happy to be with you today. Welcome, everybody.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So we really wanted to come on today and to introduce on a weekly basis different members of the Train the Trainer family. And we're so happy that, Patty, you took some time for us today. This is amazing. And I know you're jumping from one call to another, but that says a lot about your commitment to Train the Trainer people, such as myself and Molly, that you took the time, and we really do appreciate it. Right, Molly?
Anytime. I love you guys. This is fun for me. I love my trainers. It's a favorite part of this whole thing. I love it. I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy it's Friday.
Oh, yeah. We're happy it's Friday.
Oh, my God, yes. And you know what? Molly and I are really avid followers of what you're doing, Patty, on your own. And are you ready, Molly? Do you have your book ready?
I have my book ready.
Oh, I don't even know where my book is. Oh, it's so sweet. Thanks.
You are doing so many exciting things, and we're so inspired by you. And we really appreciate you coming on today because we want to hear more about your book launch and all the success that you've had. You want to tell us a little bit more about all the amazing things that are happening with that?
Well, it's really been pretty cool. I mentioned it, I don't know when, but I never know what group I'm in. So if I repeat myself, whoever's listening, please forgive me. But when I did the book, Kate and I did a program 2 years ago called Permission Granted. Part of that program included a book. And so we were going to do it 2 years ago. So we ran a course for the year, but we didn't finish the book because I was like, I want to make it really good. I want to make it really good. And so I was kind of, I don't know, just putting it off at some level. Plus we had Lisa Nichols and Ayanla and some different people. And so we finally launched it, and we literally got it to press. I think, God bless Kate Butler. I mean, she kicked butt, but I think we got it to press about 3 weeks before it actually was available on Amazon. Wow. And so then the whole thing was, the promise was we'll get to #1. And so we did. I had no idea that we would get to #1 in 38 categories. Wow. And so it was pretty exciting. And then I got the book. Darlene Whitehurst, who's part of my girlfriend group, she was, do you guys hear that noise?
I hear it. It's kind of staticky.
No, it's like a tapping. Yeah. Anyway, so Darlene was at my house in Tennessee, and I was like, "You got to go to the airport." She's like, I know. And she kept looking out the window, and I was like, "Santa Claus isn't coming. It's August or whatever, And so anyway, she waited, and she's like, "I'm waiting for the book to come." And then I finally went to the back of the house instead of the front where I thought it would be, and it was in the mailbox. And so I ran out and I opened it. I literally started crying. I'm like, oh my God, I can't. It was so weird. It was overwhelming just to know that I've been talking about Permission Granted for, I want to say like 9 years, just in at some shape or form. And when I started the whole idea, it was like, I'm going to give myself permission. I was angry and wanted to. I was really waiting for Jack to bring me up on stage and make me a trainer. And he didn't even know I wanted to be a trainer, So like, you have to give yourself permission to show up and say what you want, It was like, take my advice, I'm not using it. But then, once it came out of my mouth, it took a while and baked a while, and then we launched it. And it's been really fun. I'm getting a ton of feedback that people really love the book. It's really weird. It's so weird. I don't know. Someone's typing or something.
The weirdest. I can hear all that static.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. If anybody is listening, if they want to let us know if they hear the noise as well, it could be something internal.
Can you mute people? Do you know if you can mute people?
I cannot. Yes, I can actually. Let me see.
You just muted. Are you there? No, we're all muted.
Yeah, I just muted both of us. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you. I can't hear. I think Mollie's still muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, when you come, so mute Mollie for a minute. Okay, so I'm going to keep you muted just for a minute, Mollie, while I talk. And I'm going to unmute you because it's something on your end that's doing it. All right. So, okay, so I do the book, right? And I'm nervous about it and everything else. I never, ever, ever dream about my mom. I had the most vivid dream that I've ever had since she died last night. It was so weird. And it was, in my dream, she was still not here. And we had this fight about my dad. I'm like, you're dead. I'm here. It's my show now. I mean, it was like, but we got through our fight, but it was so weird. I mean, it was weird. And my husband dreams about my mom all the time and I never do. So it was, I don't know, maybe she just was showing up in her own way. It was interesting. So.
Wow. I'm going to get Mollie back on in just a second, but I just want to say, I read the part where you talked about how you promised your mom basically when she was about to pass in 2012, right? That you were going to step up finally into your own power and kind of claim it. So this is maybe very symbolic, right? Of
weird.
Doing that right now. And she's just totally supporting you in the other realm. How cool is that?
So interesting. And I actually did a session yesterday too with one of our other grads, and it was all about some limiting beliefs. And one of the things for me was, as much as my mom said, promise me that you'll stand up and show up and take credit where credit's due, because Jack and I really built the business together. But I just always I was so intimidated, and I just always was giving him the power, not the power even, I was just giving him all the credit. Everywhere I went, I would give him the credit. I still give him a lot of credit, but now I know how to take credit too. And it wasn't at all his fault. It was me just not showing up. I mean, I think the thing with Train the Trainer, and I took it the first year, 2009. And I think, as I went through that, I had a lot of epiphanies. I had a ton of transformation. And I was like, okay, I'm there now. And then I didn't really do anything. And then I actually did a women's retreat with Teresa Huggins, who I love. She's one of our best trainers and grads ever. If you're out there, Teresa, hello. And so we did a women's retreat together in Santa Barbara in 2011. And I was a wreck. I think I said 5 words. And one of my closest, dearest friends had died the year before. And she had said, you need to show up more. And she was like the dog whisperer, but also the human. She was the Patty whisperer. And so I remember that morning I was getting up, I was nervous. I'd rented this house on the beach. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to say to these women? And then I realized it was her birthday. It was the date of her death. And so I called Jackie Book, who was my assistant, and not then, we were friends, but then she became my assistant. I'm like, oh my gosh, today's the day I'm doing this workshop. And so Teresa and I did this workshop. It was wonderful. It was on the house at the beach. And then I had said to Jack, do you want to come over for wine one of the nights? And he was like, I don't know. And so he did come over, and I said, they're all grads, so they just kind of want to see what was just around the corner. And we had done the board breaking ceremony that afternoon where we put all of our limiting beliefs on boards. And so we threw them in this fire pit. Well, what I didn't know is those boards are really porous, and so they burn like crazy. And so we had this massive fire. It's like 20 feet high. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to burn down Santa Barbara. Jack's here. He's never let me do a workshop again. And when I was mortified, one of my friends was really drunk. She's like scooping sand in the fire, like visualize it going out. It's a shit show. It was crazy. Then I did that. And then I retreated. It's like, okay, I survived. And then I kind of went away again. And then when my mom passed away, we were in Hawaii. I had to go home. And then I was sitting in the house in Hawaii and just thought, why am I here right now? And why did I build this big monster of a house? And, the psychic said, this house was meant to teach you a lesson, and it's going to strangle you until you learn it. And I said, well, what the hell is the lesson? She said, you need to use your voice and you need to teach people what you know. I'm like, but he can do that. Jack was there. And she said, nope, you have to do it. So I mustered up my strength again, and I created a luxury retreat, and I went to Jack and said, we're going to do luxury retreats. And I was scared to death. I had the biggest poker face I've ever had in my life, and convinced him that we should do it. And that was like 20 retreats ago. I could convince him of anything if I could just keep a poker face, but then when it came to me, there was nobody with a poker face. And so I'm like waiting for someone else to show up and push them along. Cause I always knew, like, okay, I've got the goods. I've got Canfield. He's an amazing trainer. I'm just going to like push him along. So I could see the strategy. I could see the vision, but he had to show up. And and it was so good at it that I never really thought that it's like, so what, you have to show up. You have to show up every day anyway. Now I get it on the other side. Like, oh, this is what it looks like having to show up, really show up. So it's been a journey, and I'm so excited for all the students this year because we're going to get some great training with the Zoom staff and learning how to really, we didn't have this in the beginning of Train the Trainer Live. We didn't have these scripts that you would go through. We didn't have the online videos that you could watch over and over and over again. You had to suck up whatever you could get in that room. And it was 3 weeks long, over the course of a year. And you left, and you either did it or you didn't do it. And so with this, with the online portion, with the boot camps we're doing, with Kathleen totally stepping up, she's amazing. Mm-hmm. We were talking this morning about her boot camp that she's doing, which all of you are getting as well. We're weaving in the same stuff that we're selling to our grads and to other trainers or Train the Trainer Online people. So it's just ever since permission granted happened, everything's kind of really just opening up at some level. And it's kind of cool. It's like when you really accept what the universe wants for you on some level and stop fighting it, life feels easier, if that makes sense. I mean, I know that makes sense to you because both of you are trainers. That's what we teach, but sometimes we don't actually do it. So I'm going, hey, guess what, guys? I'm doing it, and it's really working.
There is nothing like walking your talk, which is exactly what you're doing right now. And it seems like permission granted, if I may say, Patty, is a journey, your own journey, right? And it's still continuing, which is really cool. And it makes it that much more relevant, especially for us women. And I just love the fact that you're a woman stepping up into the plate, especially since you started so much behind the scenes as an assistant to Jack. Can we say you started as a secretary? Was that pretty much your role at the time? And look where you are. Oh my God. And look where you are right now. It's just, and you're stepping into your role. And even though I'm sure there's a certain amount of fear and trepidation from time to time, but you do it anyway, right? And you're
I'm always scared. I say if you're not scared, then you're slacking. And, it's true at some level. I mean, you don't always have to be scared, but when it's like when you get to a place where you're not scared anymore, then you need to do something to just kind of scare yourself a little bit and just to be a little uncomfortable. But, it's interesting. It's always, every time I do something new, I know last year we did a bunch of one-day events, and I've always, when I started doing this work, I did one-on-one, mostly one-on-one with Jack. Okay, you can do this, you got this, you're smart enough, you're good enough, and then we started doing these little mastermind groups. And I didn't say anything in the beginning of those. And I would let him and Mark or him and James Malinchak or him and whoever was, there with us, like we would always have three. I didn't say anything for the first several. Now Jack can barely get a word in. But then to go from that to the bigger stage, so it's one thing to have a conversational type of coaching and use the principles. But when you get to the place of, okay, now there's 1,000 people in the room and I have to be able to remember where I'm at. And what I love about Train the Trainer is, there's 5 key ingredients for every single principle. There's always a principle. There's always an example. There's always a demonstration. There's always a story. There's always a transition. So that if you just hit those markers that you won't get lost. Because I think, especially for women, a lot of us are like, well, what if I forget my line? Well, we're not supposed to forget our line because we're not supposed to be thinking about our line. We're supposed to be in our bodies, which is what's great about Train the Trainer, because you have to practice over and over and over again. And I actually did a workshop 3 or 4 years ago, and you had to memorize these lines. And I couldn't remember my lines to save my life. And so one of my friends, he's an NLP expert, he goes, all right, turn around, look at the wall, and just scream and put your arms up and go, wah! So I'm screaming, and he goes, okay, now say your lines. So I'm like, good morning and welcome. I totally knew my lines, but it's like your brain gets in the way. So he made me do something else that like allowed my brain to release what it already knew. And so sometimes I think we get into this place where we get out of our bodies and we're trying to think too hard. So and he always said, he's like, Patty, 80% of everything that you say is how you show up. So just show up, be grounded, really give eye contact, do what you do if you're having a conversation, and the rest is going to come. It's like, okay. So, it's a journey, but last year was the first year with those one-day events. And I think were you at one of them, Tina? Did you come to the
Breakthrough to Success? Breakthrough the Greatness?
We did one. You were there. One Day to Greatness. Yeah. And so we,
That's where I signed up for this.
yeah. Yeah. And so we were doing those, and I got into the room the night before, and there was like so many chairs, and I was the MC. And I'm like, I almost had a nervous breakdown. And Jack's like, don't worry, it's like talking to 5 people. I said, it is not like talking to 5 people. And I think the first city was Portland. And Portland's kind of a tough crowd, you know. I was really shy. And I stayed up until 2 a.m. doing slides with Jack. And then in the morning I had to get up at 5 o'clock and get my hair and makeup done. I had a photo shoot. I had all these things I had to do beforehand. And he called me at 7, and I knew it was him because it showed on my phone. And so I thought I would really mess with him. And he's like, I answer, I'm like, hello. He goes, you're not awake. I was so so late the night before doing slides, because you know he's so always going to be so prepared. God bless him. And I said, yes, I'm awake. I've been up since 5. You know, he's like, oh my God, I almost had a heart attack. So that was kind of a new stretch, and it was nerve wracking. You know, I always say to people, it's easier to train to people that you don't know, but when your whole family is in the room, like my CEO, my sales team, my marketing team, Jack, you know, Veronica, who I've known since I was 20, like they're all there. And so you don't want to let anybody down. So that extra pressure, but I think I grew a lot from that too. So I think everything you do allows you to grow a little bit more. And the more often you do it, the better you'll become. And so for me, it's like, I'll do it and then I'll hide, and I'll do it and then I'll hide. And so the thing is, do it and then do it again. Like we don't fall off of our bike when we're 3 and go run in the house. We get back on the bike. We get back on the bike. And that's what Train the Trainer's great about. Like we just keep having you get back on the bike, and it's such a loving and supportive community. So, I mean, look, I wouldn't know the 2 of you if we weren't all doing these things. How awesome is that, right?
Well, actually, that's a great segue for something that Mollie and I were talking about earlier. The fact that Train the Trainer wouldn't exist if it wasn't for you, right? It was your idea to begin with, and to expand it to the level that you have.
Yeah, well, you know, we used to do training every summer for teachers, and we were teaching them how to facilitate self-esteem in the classroom. And then when Chicken Soup took off, we just had to stop doing it. And so what we did do when we sold the company, I said, why don't we come full circle and train trainers now that we have a bigger brand? And Jack said, that's not a bad idea. So we did a bunch of one days, and we had our first class had 60 people or 70 people in it. Alice was there. I was there. Cindy Ertman was there. Kathleen Seeley was there. That's where I met Kathleen. So all these things, like when you follow those inspired ideas and create inspired actions, I wouldn't know any of you. I mean, Kathleen and I have had a decade of crazy, and it's been amazing. And I wouldn't have had any of that. I definitely wouldn't be the person I am. So it's important to, when you get that inside and you know something, you're like led to it, that you never let anybody talk you out of it, and you go for it, and you scare the crap out of yourself. And sometimes I scare the crap out of the entire team, which is not unusual. Jack's the one that has the better delivery for sure. But, you know, it's fun, and you grow from that. And it's cool. Yeah. And then Train the Trainer Online came along, and now we're here, and we're pivoting even more. And you know, I was saying this morning, I was talking with Kathleen, we were talking to the online people, and I was saying, you know, imagine if you were to go to a workshop right now, you'd have to rent a room, sign a contract, which is very, very scary. Then you have to figure out how to fill the room, which is very, very scary. And then the last thing you do is have to make sure that you're delivering to the room. And so now we're all here on Zoom. You know, I asked Kathleen if she would show before and after pictures of her before studio and now what her studio looks like, because it's amazing. It looks like she's on CNN or something. But now that we don't have to spend all this money to go out and do these hotels, we can actually invest in our own studios. We can invest in the right equipment. We can get better on Zoom. We can learn how to facilitate and break people into groups. So there's a ton of opportunity here. And I'm really excited because we can practice all the time. You don't have to wait and see me 3 months later or 6 months later. Anybody can call me and say, okay, wait, I've got this interview I've got to do. You know, can I practice? Like, I don't care. I mean, of course you can practice. I want to always be here for all of you, because I know what it's like when you have to go do something and you're scared to death to do it, and you don't have someone to say, you got this. So I'm the believe it's possible, you know, like my friends say, you're like chief believer. But it's fun to be chief believer because I can always see in you what you can't see in yourself. And the same as with the two of you. I'm sure you see things in me that I'll never see in myself, which makes us, not narcissists or sociopaths. So it's a good thing. But we have to have our friends around us to cheer them on, right?
Speaking of having our friends, I'm going to unmute Mollie this time so she can chime in a little bit. Mollie, anything in particular? We're at the 20-minute mark. Is there anything in particular we wanted to ask before we let Patty go? Because I know you have to get on to something else, and this has been amazing. Mollie?
I have 2 questions for you, Patty.
Okay.
Any great programs coming up? Are you writing another book or spinning something off of Permission Granted?
Well, I swear I'd never do a permission book, but I'm seriously thinking that I might. And I might break it into different themes, but I am doing a Permission 2.0. It's going to start sometime in mid-October, which I'm really excited about. And the format that we do is I teach for about 90 minutes once a month, and then I have an expert call, and the women are amazing, Lisa Nichols or Ayanna Vincent or different people. And then we also have a higher level of mastermind group. So that they then meet together. I break them into groups of 6, and then they get together each month with me, and we just go through and look at what do they want to do and where do they want to go. So I'm kind of like my other mastermind groups, only we have a teaching call and an expert and a mastermind for that second level. And it's a really cool group of women. It's interesting. Like a lot of women I didn't even know. They hadn't even been in any of our trainings. A lot of Tony Robbins people came, and now I have friends in Nashville when I go there that were in my Permission Granted group. I didn't know. So now I have lunch with them all the time and hang out. And it's just interesting when you make the decision to really go for it. And I know that everybody in this group is doing that right now. And I also know that everyone in this group is also scared at some level. But if you just follow it, like you wouldn't be here if it wasn't meant to be, right? And so start to think about what programs you want to do. Start to think about when you're going through other programs, how could you model it around, look at what you like and create your own things too. So yeah, I am. It'll be in October. You'll see the marketing, I'm sure.
One other question is, if you were talking to your 30-year-old self, what would you say?
Oh my God. The list is kind of long, Mollie. Well, I would say ask for what you're worth, negotiate for your value. Jack and I were working together. Mark came in, honestly, and became his partner if I'd known better, I was equally as invested and equally, I was doing a lot of the work. I mean, I think Mark had played a huge part for us. He was the Believe It's Possible person. It's where I got it. So I'm grateful, but I would have asked for more, I'm sure. I'm lucky and I'm glad that I was smart enough to ask to do books because I made a lot of money doing that. But I also would have owned my greatness sooner. Even though I wrote 14 chicken soup books and I published, I oversaw 230 of those books until we sold. But even though I did those books, I never really owned it. And I never spoke. That was the biggest mistake of my life because I had people calling me saying, can you come and talk about Chicken Soup for the Christian Woman's Soul? We have 11,000 people in the stadium. And because I was such a chicken and I didn't take this seriously, I missed out on massive, massive exposure. And so when I did decide to get a little bit more gutsy, like all of you are doing, I called Mercy Scheimoff and I said, Merce, how much money did you make speaking, not doing Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul, but speaking, collectively over the 18 years that we worked together in publishing? And she said, several $1 million. I was like, shit. And she sold a lot more books than I did because books don't just sell themselves. If you're going to write a book, you have to know your story. You have to really own your story. That's what we'll be doing in the first week of Train the Trainer. It's like really getting your story down. And it's so important. And I would have done that. And I wussed out. I told myself that I was the president of Chicken Soup for the Soul and I was too busy. And what I really was I was too scared. Yeah.
You are an inspiration for us, and we're so happy that you've developed this program and that you are stepping up and giving other women permission to shine and make mistakes and get and support each other. So thank you for stepping up.
You're welcome. Yeah. Thank you for supporting me. I mean, you both have been amazing support too. So I really, really appreciate it. It's nice to spend an afternoon with you guys, you gals.
Well, I just want to echo what Mollie just said. And again, to repeat what I said earlier, that we wouldn't be together. The three of us wouldn't be sitting together right now on this StreamYard call, streaming into Jack's and yours Facebook group with all these Train the Trainer people, if it was not for your vision, Patty. Mm-hmm. And thank you for owning that, and thanking for taking the stage and taking ownership of that, because it means a lot. It really does. And it's not just the women, it's anybody who has lost their voice.
Yeah.
Right? And someone who is not yet stepping into their power and is willing to put themselves on the line and to be vulnerable and willing to fall on their face sometimes, because sometimes that's the toughest part. And that's actually probably where we learn the most, right?
And we don't even really fall on our face when you think about it. Like Kathleen always says, I went to the pool with my bikini on and nothing bad happened. It's like, I mean, nothing bad is going to happen. We might fumble a little bit, do some things that maybe we would do differently. But at the end of the day, what I always say is just think, and this happened to me. I was doing a workshop with Kathleen called Good Food, Good Wine, Good Sex, Goodbye. Pretty good title, right? And so I was there and we had to do a milling exercise. Kathleen was leading it with Sandy Stewart, one of our friends. And so one of the things was, my question was, I'm writing a book called Permission Granted. So we had to do how do you hide first. So it was like, I'm choosing not to write my book Permission Granted so I can stay invisible. That was my line. And then we had to have a turnaround statement. I just now remembered this. And so kind of gives me goosebumps. And because I really didn't even believe that I was going to ever really get it done at the time. And then I turned the statement around and said, I'm choosing to do my book Permission Granted. Do you have any advice for me? And this older woman, and I'm in the room thinking, who's going to have advice for me about publishing a book? I mean, come on, I've published a few books in my day. And this woman said, I want you to think every time you get scared and you decide that you think you don't want to do this, I want you to think of all the lives that won't change if you don't stand in your power and share your story. And I was like, oh shit, and it was really powerful. And it was amazing. I don't know who that woman was, and I will never forget what she said, because it really was true. And I've had so many people call me and write me and say, oh my gosh, your story meant so much to me. It gave me permission to really look at my life and look at where I'm hiding and how to eat. Because so often we hide and we blame everybody else and we get resentful and passive aggressive, and we're not the best version of ourselves. And so the only one that can take us out of hiding is us, honestly. And it's really interesting because just in the last couple of weeks, I've really realized that I would say, like, you ask yourself what you want and then act as if and fake it till you make it. But it's really act as if, like my friend the other day, Jim Selman, he's a really bright older guy that is a great coach. And he was saying, there's no difference between time and space. And so today is tomorrow. And so if tomorrow I'm going to be great, then be great now.
Yeah.
And so just
that's great.
It is. And it's like in that vibration of just knowing that you're in your place to make a difference. And so stand in that vibration, stand in that power, and the rest of it will show up. Mm-hmm. But it's not like sticking your toe in the water. I mean, there's no separation, there's no separation. And so when you realize that, you can show up as who you are right now, and not in a way that's like, I deserve this, but really like, I am here. I am here to serve. I'm here to learn. I'm here to see all of the souls that God or the universe puts in front of me. And I have to say that is the one thing that Mr. Canfield really does well when it comes to a training room. It's like, I remember we were in India. I know we should probably wrap this up, but we were in India and this little kid was chasing us. We were in a rickshaw. And I said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine having that life. And this little boy was like looking right at me. And Jack says to me, he's like, just remember that little boy's eyes every time you have a judgment about anyone. And I was like, all right, Buddha, can I just chill out for a minute? I'm in India, But the different things that have happened have really been the things that have brought us this place, that have brought all of you here. And I think the thing that's different about living in the Canfield methodology is that you really are coming from a place, a heart-centered space. And I was talking to a good friend last night who's starting a huge platform for Google and eBay and TikTok and all kinds of different things. And she said, in 10 years, like 80% or 60% or whatever, all of the work will be done by robots. What we have to have our hearts. Yeah. And trainers and corporate trainers, corporations are looking for trainers with a heart. And so now is really the time to go into that place and really own that soul and take it out there and share it with the rest of the world, because God knows we need it more than we've ever needed it before.
That was freaking awesome. And I think that last message of what you just said, Patty, if anybody who's listening to this can take that forward into the Train the Trainer, it could just change their whole way of looking at what they're doing and where they could take this.
Absolutely.
Right?
And when we get scared, we have to start ego and just remember we're coming from service and we're there to serve. It's not about us. We're just being used as a body to go do the work.
Beautiful.
It takes the pressure off.
This has been absolutely amazing. We're so grateful that you came on with us, that you still
Thanks for having you two. You have to start the Tina and Mollie show.
Me and Mollie. Maybe we'll change the name.
Yeah.
Mollie, any final words before we sign off?
I just thank you so much for coming on and showing up, and we're super excited for just a short time away.
Thanks, Mollie. Great to be here with you, Tina. Thank you. Thanks for thinking of me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Happy Friday, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. Bye.